Hello, hello, welcome in. This is the Champaign Room live. I'm Alina Isaac. There's actually a ton to talk about for being June 24th. And we knew the Keaton news was going to be coming. He finally gets drafted pretty early on, highest draftee since Darren Williams in 2005. But we have a lot to talk about, so we thought we'd bring Alex on from Armchair. So, Alex, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it, sir.
Absolutely, man. Thanks for having me back on. It was a lot of fun doing that draft that we did about a month and a half ago. I'll never forget you picking Matthew Meyer ahead of a lot of people. But yeah, thanks for having me on, man.
Yeah, absolutely. That was I don't know where my brain went. I think I just was I started tweaking and I just thought of to the Texas Matthew Meyer game. Robby Nardini's obviously joining us, the usual. Robby's doing a ton of stuff. So Robby, thanks for joining per usual.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on. And I know I've been on weekly for a while now. I know we usually do Mondays. Had to do a little switch up of Wednesday with the draft, and then we got a ton of other news too in the Big Ten coaching wise, and some other news too. So it's a busy week for the third week or the last week of June.
Yeah, holy cow, Big Ten has gone crazy just with obviously the Dusty May situation, which we'll get into. And then I don't know if there's a specific reason. Do you guys know why? Why is the NBA draft on Tuesday and Wednesday? Like, I feel like the NFL does it, where it's like, oh, it's the weekend. We got the first round. Oh, like, I wonder why. I just felt like it being on when I realized it was on a Tuesday, I was just not expecting, like, oh, that's going to be the night Keaton gets drafted.
Yeah, it was a little weird. I don't really know why they did that. And to my knowledge, they used to just do the first and the second round like together on the same night.
You did.
Obviously, like David Stern or Adam Silver, whoever did the first round, would take a break, and then once the second round got underway, they would just roll through it, and they're just ripping. But it gets kind of repetitive on the second round because you really just want to get through it, and they bring up Nikola Jokic, Jalen Brunson, Monty Ginobili at least three times, and then they talk about news that they talked about at length yesterday. So it does get a little bit repetitive. I don't know why they split it up, to be honest with you.
Yeah, they've been doing it on a Tuesday. I feel like for the past couple years, at least from my knowledge. But it is tough for the second round. Obviously, we're all watching, but it is tough to get through the second round. It just feels so much slower and so much less exciting. Where I'm obviously going to watch still, but yeah, they need to cut it a little bit. Maybe make the picks. I mean, it's already 5 minutes, I think, but you got to somehow speed it up. And of course, the famous Nikola Jokic Taco Bell commercial.
Yep.
They're like running commercials during this too. It's like they're just talking and running commercials. It doesn't really matter when guys get picked now.
Yeah, it is interesting too because like I get in the NFL draft right by sixth or seventh round, like whatever, play commercial, like that's still amazing for that guy. But like there's so few NBA roster spots. Like even if you're a second round pick, like I feel like you should be front and center. They shouldn't be showing a Taco Bell commercial or whatever. But I get a lot of these guys are not even gonna ever play a role, like a legit role in the league. But yeah, it is a lot. I'm a huge draft guy, and again, nobody really came on to hear our analysis of the NBA draft, I'm sure. But the last thing I'll say is I would say I'm a avid basketball NBA fan, like way more than the average. And the trades and like I'm looking at this right now, Emmanuel Sharp to the Kings from Charlotte via San Antonio, Atlanta, and the Knicks. So, and even last night, like Shams is talking to like Billis and some of the other people on the panel, and they don't even know who's actually drafting. And then the fans are going crazy, and it's like, well, that's actually not the player you're getting. So that's my biggest gripe. I don't know. Does it make sense to you guys, or is it pretty confusing?
No, it definitely is pretty confusing because a lot like Bennett Sturts got drafted by someone else and he's going to
Yeah,
Oklahoma City. Abuka Corey was drafted by someone. He's going to the Pistons. So, I mean, Will Riley was a victim of it last year. There's just so much movement, especially once you get past the lottery, that it's really kind of hard to keep up and see, oh, this guy's going to this time. But at the end of the day, it does make sense. Like, a lot of teams are trying to move up. They're trying to get different kind of assets. Chicago Robby, I know you've been kind of following the Bulls a lot recently with what they did with Braden Smith. A lot of it kind of just makes sense if you just kind of take a breath, but in the moment, it just feels like a whirlwind. You don't really know who's going where. And then they keep mentioning that Giannis got traded. And then the thing is, it's just like they don't mention the trade right when it happens. You see it on Twitter, and then they'll like 5 picks later, they'll be like, "Oh, by the way, this is the trade that Shams or whoever dropped on Twitter." So you kind of have to be used to feeling overstimulated, if you will.
Yeah, the trades are tough, especially teams are just throwing around second round picks like it's nothing. And honestly, second round picks are pretty much nothing nowadays with NIL. Second round picks aren't great. I mean, the second round's cool because a lot of college players go that like Emmanuel Sharp, Tyler Nickel on Vanderbilt, like some really good college guys. But like you said, Isaac, it's tough for those guys to break into the league. And it's unfortunate they do announce the trade like 20 minutes later. Me and my buddy were watching last night, and when the Hornets came up at the 14th pick, we figured it would be Steinbach. We really wanted Steinbach to go to the Bulls, and they come up, announce a trade. So we think the Hornets are trading their pick, and we're like, wow, maybe the Bulls are actually going to get Steinbach. And of course, it was like the trade that already happened that nobody cares about anymore. We're way past that point in the draft. So yeah, it sucks that these guys get all their pictures with a hat that aren't actually their hat too. I mean, Kobe Bryant, the most famous one, it doesn't have a Lakers hat on. Of course, it's a Lakers legend. It just has gone on for 20, 25 years at this point. They need to figure that out for sure.
I think you're muted, Isaac.
Good call. I was even looking for a picture of Will Riley last year, and he was in the Jazz hat originally. But yeah. Anywho, Alex, I'll let you do the honors. So Keaton Wagler gets drafted by the Clippers, 5th overall. It still is pretty surreal to look at the coverage that the 5th overall pick gets and just the amount of social content, and just to think like, a year and a half ago or whatever or less, Keaton was playing against, high school kids in Kansas. And even at the beginning of the Illinois season last year, we never would have thought he was going to be a draft pick. Then it's like, oh my gosh, he ends up going 5. So a team just invested a ton. I mean, when you take somebody 5th overall, you're hoping they come in and become an instant impact. So sounds like we talked before, you've done some research and stuff. What is Keaton getting himself into in Los Angeles?
Well, the Los Angeles Clippers did a lot of investment in making sure that Darius Garland was kind of the head of the ship, right? They got rid of James Harden. Kawhi Leonard, obviously he's still there, but he's never really available due to his injury history, and they're likely going to be moving on to him. There's a little bit of a scandal that's also going on when they're, losing picks. I don't know if, you guys are familiar, but there's that whole scandal with him getting paid under the table by, I think it was like a tree business or something like that. So his future is really, really hazy. They got rid of Zubac and got Benedict Mathurin on the wing, and they got guys like John Collins and Derrick Jones Jr. as part of their front court, hoping to play, a little bit of a different style of basketball and kind of transition Kawhi Leonard out of there. But he's still on the team, and the biggest hole that they had was someone alongside Darius Garland, who, like I said, they put a ton of investment into. So Keaton, I think out of the 4 guys that everyone was talking about, meaning Keaton, Mikal Brown Jr., Darius Acuff Jr., and then Kingston Flemings, I thought it was the best fit for the Clippers. And I think, honestly, it was my favorite place for Keaton personally, too. Just thinking about the other teams, whether he would go to Brooklyn, Atlanta, or Sacramento. I didn't like any of those fits for Keaton. So I think it's kind of the best of both situations for Keaton and the Clippers themselves. In terms of his route to playing time, I think there's a pretty clear path. Obviously, the Clippers aren't done in terms of what they're doing, and their offseason's still ongoing. But they had a press conference today, and it's literally just Lawrence Frank, the president of basketball operations, and Keaton Wagler. It's just those 2 guys. So you can see that they've made quite a bit of investment into Keaton. On the roster itself, they got a little bit of a veteran presence. Chris Dunn is there, throwback to when he was a Bulls pick. I think he was the 5th pick for Minnesota, and got traded to the Bulls with the Larry Markkinen deal and Jimmy Butler and et cetera. But he's a vet. He's kind of limited. He's a really good defender, but limited shooter. So Keaton really has a chance because of his 2-way potential. And I say 2-way potential because I need everyone, and Robby, when we did our episode, we talked about it. He was really good defensively when he played Kingston Flemings versus Houston in that Sweet 16 game. So I think this is Keaton's job to take. Will he be ready for it? It'll be difficult to say because of his frame, but there's a very, very clear path to playing time for Keaton Wagler.
Yeah, he definitely, like I said, was made the focal point. And I mean, Lawrence Frank just had a ton of good things to say about him. And poor Kingston Flemings, because it sounds like Flemings was a big reason. The way that Keaton handled that workout was a big reason that the Clippers, were solidifying, picking him at 5. And then obviously that Houston game, Keaton played so well. So Robby, what do you think what's like a realistic expectation for Keaton in his first year? I think even like what Will Riley did this past year and Terrence has done, and then Io had flashes early, Kasparis had a few flashes. Like that is even above average, I think, for what a lot of rookies do compared to a lot of the guys that just are in the G League or they don't get any minutes. So I think that might have even raised the bar or set people's expectations pretty high. But what do you think is a realistic expectation for Keaton this next year? He's in a unique situation because the Clippers might be in win now mode.
Yeah, I think the expectations are higher for Keaton Wagler than the other guys. Of course, Io has had a great career as a second-round pick, though. Terrence is still struggling a bit to get minutes, and Will Riley played at the end, of the season when they were tanking and everything, and he played really well. But I think the expectation should be higher for Keaton, and that goes with being the number 5 pick. I know they have Garland and Mathurin and other guys on their team, like Alex said, but I think Keaton's going to play a decent bit from the start, and you don't take someone number 5 and not play him. You look at top 10 picks, top 5 picks; those are guys you want to be NBA All-Stars, compete for championships. And if they keep Kawhi Leonard, then they could be in the playoffs. I think they're the 9 seed last year in the West, but they are a potential playoff team. And the good thing about Keaton is he can play alongside Darius Garland. Garland can play the point guard. They can switch off ball handling duties, and Keaton's a big guard. I know people are worried about his frame, but I'm not too worried about that. He's a good rebounder for his frame, and I think people forget that you can get stronger in the NBA too. A lot of people say you got to come back to college to get stronger. Well, I mean, you can get stronger in the NBA and develop as well. He's only 19 years old. He's only going to get better. So, year one maybe won't be the best. Hopefully won't be the best Keaton Wagler you'll see in the NBA, but I still think he'll play big minutes and be one of the best rookies in the NBA. And I don't feel bad for Kingston Flemings. He's going to be amazing in the NBA as well. So he'll be just fine.
Yeah. And Alex, what's been the most interesting part of this? I think as Illinois fans, we've obviously heard the Keaton Wagler story a million times every different way. And it's still amazing every time, really, if you think about it. And you think about other recruits that were, over 200 and like the way they panned out versus how Keaton panned out. But what has been the most interesting thing you've learned about Keaton or about his story just from his draft process and then his being picked last night? Like, I feel like there's been some good quotes to come out. There's been, some interesting things from now the Clippers and everything, but what's kind of stood out to you that was noteworthy maybe from the whole draft process?
Just for the draft process itself, actually, 2 things. One, he did this really cool interview with Ryan Hammer, close friend of our show, and Kristen Peak at Yahoo, when he said that basically before that Purdue game, that 46-point performance, he really wasn't feeling all that well. He was getting dizzy. He was getting lightheaded, had like half a Rice Krispie bar and drank some water and then was good to go. But then he ends up scoring the first 14 points of the game and said, okay, I'm cool. So I thought that was really interesting, giving a little bit of behind the scenes before that kind of legendary performance. Another one was he did this interview with Clutch Points and then basically said that a team that he didn't name showed him a bunch of pictures of his own family. And then in between those pictures showed him pictures of people that he had no idea of and asked him questions. And he was like, I genuinely don't have any idea who these people are. So I thought that was funny that, Keaton, who's probably one of the most, stone-faced, stoic, calm, cool, collected, had to face a question like that. Because I remember, I think it was Dennis Smith Jr. with the Knicks, and I think Phil Jackson like forced him to eat an octopus, in pre-draft a dinner or something. So I thought that was cool just to get kind of a behind the scenes and say, hey, sometimes these people are just really trying to rattle you or try to see you kind of act off the fly, things like that. But I think, in all seriousness too, the biggest thing that I've taken away from this draft process is look at the top 10 picks essentially, all 5-star recruits. Basically, you go down the list: Peterson, DeBonsa, Boozer, Acuff, Michael Brown. All those guys were 5-star prospects coming out of high school, and then you have Keaton Wagler, who is sitting at 261 in the 24/7 Sports composite ranking. So I think that's honestly quite a big deal. And then last detail is that everyone made a deal that this is a 4-person draft with Boozer, with DeBonsa, Peterson, and Caleb Wilson. And then the draft really just starts at 5 because everyone knows it's going to be those 4 guys at the top. And rightfully so. And I don't think you'll find one person that disagrees with that. But the first person that was taken is Keaton Wagler, basically where the rest of the draft starts. So I thought that was, a really, really cool story and a really big selling point, and what's, priming up to be a historical legendary draft with, 4 franchise cornerstones in Peterson, DeBonsa, Boozer, and Wilson. You got Keaton Wagler at 5, who's the first of that, next bunch, if you will. So those are kind of those 2 storylines that really stuck out to me, just, going through this draft process and doing some research.
Yeah, and here's that quote you were talking about, which is really odd. Some team asked Keaton, they put up a picture of me and my family, and a couple of them just weren't even my family. And I was like, that's weird. They asked me, who are these people? And I was like, I actually don't know who these people are. So yeah, and Keaton's doesn't seem like a guy to like embellish things either. I'm sure this is just straightforward, exactly how it was. But I've heard some weird draft questions, and that is definitely out there. But Robby, what about you? What is maybe something you didn't know before about Keaton, or just something about the process or the way maybe outsiders viewed him that has kind of stuck out to you, or that you've learned, the last 24 hours or so?
Yeah, I think it's just more the same for Keaton. People keep doubting him. People say that he's not athletic enough. He can't create his own shot. People had him a little bit lower on their big boards, even though he was an All-American, and he still went number 5. And I think the thing that stood out to me most was just the Clippers GM, how much he was talking about, how well he was talking about Keaton, his IQ, his ability to process, all the things that really Brad Underwood talks about. But just hearing that from the Clippers GM, it sounded like he wanted Keaton from the start. And I know they did the workout with Kingston Flemings and Keaton. I'm sure they worked out other guys too, but it really seems like the Clippers just fell in love with Keaton. And similar to Illinois fans, we fell in love with him too for all the same things. And that really just stood out to me. I think just his mind and his basketball mind is just out of this world, and that's why people want to take him. And like I said, he's just 19 years old. He's only going to get better. I think that was one thing that stood out, and it's just his parents too. And I think I could say this for a lot of the top 10 picks too. Like with those interviews, you could tell all these parents raised their kids really well, and Keaton's parents too. They speak really well. It looks like they want everything best for him, and I think they're in shock too with going number 5 in the NBA draft. I think all these top 10 picks, most of them, at least the top 8 for sure. You look at those parents on the in that interview, and all of them are just really well spoken, really good people. And I think Keaton's parents did a really good job with him, and I think that's why he has a chip on his shoulder, and that's why he's so smart on and off the court.
Yeah, that was one thing I noticed too, was that him and his family seemed like they were very good in front of the camera, and that was noticeable about a lot of the guys drafted. And I think another thing that was pretty interesting was some stuff that came out about really how torn Keaton was on leaving Illinois, or like less about he was so torn, but he really wanted to come back for a second, I think. And his parents legitimately were like letting him decide. And then I think it was The Athletic that I put out a graphic the other day. I'm pretty sure it was a quote from The Athletic, and it was basically talking about him and how tough the decision was. And he basically came downstairs and told his parents, yeah, I'm going to decide to go. So that was pretty shocking. We got, I don't know, is there anything else on the Keaton situation you guys want to touch on? I'm sure we're going to talk about it a lot moving forward, but Robby or Alex, is there anything else about Keaton going to the Clippers you want to talk about before we move on?
I'm just excited to see him play in the summer league too. They got some nice lob threats that I'm looking forward to him watching. They just drafted, or the Clippers just drafted Baba Miller. They got the kid from Penn State with the super long last name. I think last name is Niederhauser. He's a really fun threat. I don't know if he'll play in the summer league, but he's a sophomore. He may play. So I'm excited to see Keaton kind of do his thing in the summer league, and put up some buckets down there.
Yeah, I'm excited for Summer League too. I really wanted to go this year. I was going to go, but not in the cards. Unfortunately, I just saw the Bulls are the second game in Summer League, so we'll see Caleb Wilson pretty early, and it's nice to have some daytime basketball. The only last thing I'll say about Keaton, and I think he really did want to come back just because he didn't expect to be in the NBA after 1 year, and I think he really did love Illinois. But I think I'm begging Illinois fans when we have another first-round pick to stop saying that he should come back. That's my only gripe with people. If you're a first-round pick, you got to go, especially if you're a lottery pick. So good for him.
Yeah, I didn't really understand. No, I don't understand that logic. And just because a player has flaws or they might be weak in certain areas of their game at 18, 19 doesn't mean they can't develop. So yeah, there's a lot of things there. Real quick before we move on to one thing, Brian Hansen, State Farm agent, supports the show. Awesome guy. We're proud to partner with State Farm agent Brian Hansen, a dedicated Illini fan. And just as we work to bring you coverage of Illinois athletics, Brian brings the same energy and commitment to serving his clients. If you're looking for a local professional who cares about the community and the orange and blue, more importantly, visit brianismyguy.com today. See why so many Illini fans trust Brian Hansen and his team for their home, auto, business, and life insurance needs. So brianismyguy.com if you need a quote today. We got a comment here about Kylan. So Robby, I'll let you take this one. What's the update on Kylan? The draft's wrapping up here. So what are we looking like?
Yeah, it looks like we got 5 more picks. Warriors just went. With all these trades, it's hard to see who's going, but I know the Bulls traded their pick. I saw Kylan was in one of the mocks for the Bulls that I had a story on with Roundtable, but they ended up trading that pick. But yeah, we got 5 more picks, I think. Kylan hasn't gone yet. I don't know if he's going to go. There's a lot of guys, that were good in college. I mean, Henry Visar just went, which is kind of crazy. He should have stayed at North Carolina, but yeah, it's hard to say. I don't know if he's going to end up going. He'll for sure sign, with a team and play summer league, even if he doesn't get drafted. So sometimes that's better. Sometimes you want to get drafted and have your moment, but we'll see. It's winding down here shortly.
Yeah, Alex, what do you think would be the best situation for Kylan at this point? I know in football, like with Luke Altmaier, for instance, they talk a lot about if you're going to be drafted that late, it's almost better to not be drafted so you can pick where you go. So what do you think is the best route for Kylan at this point as we're really getting close to the end?
Yeah, honestly, I think we're at that point in the draft, like picks 45-ish to 60 is where, players and their agents tell teams that are interested in them that they would rather pursue undrafted options just so they can have their pick. Because some of the teams that are picking right now, Atlanta, the Bulls, the Wizards, they're not very good teams. So, to be drafted, yeah, you hear your name called, but you ultimately want a right fit. And with the way the contracts work and things of that nature. So I think that Kylan needs to go to a good team, in my opinion, because at this point he's a specialist, right? He's not a guy with a ton of upside, like that maybe a team that's not doing so well can invest in and wait for. They're bringing him in as a specialist. Right now, he's a defensive specialist and a guy that can play on and off the ball, and hopefully has some upside at the 3. He shot decent, during his sophomore season at Arizona. The past 2 years in Champaign, he obviously didn't shoot all that well. He was shooting better when before he had that broken hand or broken thumb. So I think at this point, you're looking for a good team that needs a specialist, whether that's the Oklahoma City Thunder, the LA Lakers need some guard help. The Clippers even, I think, could use some depth behind Keaton Wagler. They're using a guy like Chris Dunn, who's 33 years old. They got a guy, Jordan Miller, that's, also kind of similar profile. I brought up the comparison in Lou Dort, similar kind of measurables. similar kind of shot profile, heading into his first year in the NBA, was able to join a good team like OKC and show what he can do defensively, and off the ball, and the way that he can kind of impact winning. And eventually his shot got better and better and better. And now he's one of the knockdown shooters in the NBA. So I'm hoping that Kylan finds that kind of similar situation. And he's able to kind of go into a role, a defined role, be that 13th, 14th, or 15th guy off the bench in those moments, and slowly kind of work his way up.
Yeah, he definitely seems to have the work ethic, seems to be a dude that loves basketball, where he can definitely put something together. Nick Martinelli just got drafted, and I think so. Is he technically going to the Clippers, or?
Yeah, I think he's going to the Clippers. It was the Knicks pick, but it's going to the Clippers, it looks like.
Got it. So another Big Ten dude that Keaton might be teamed up with, unless something crazy happens and they trade him elsewhere. But Robby, I'll let you do the honors with this one too. A bombshell, people might say. Dusty May, Michigan's coach, after winning the national title, which, by the way, Michigan has now had a couple national title coaches recently leave pretty soon after winning a national title. And it was pretty shocking. I know there was some things that came out earlier, like right after the season, about him saying like, "Oh, I'm never going to coach another college," but he never said, "Oh, I'm not going to go to the NBA," stuff like that. And there was a lot of rumors coming out. So I think for a lot of people, it was still pretty shocking. Maybe not the insiders, but what was your initial reaction to Dusty May leaving, and what do you think this means for Michigan?
Yeah, I was shocked. I told Alex on our podcast on Monday, like, it was like the Luka Doncic trade. Like, I checked my phone like 7 times. I couldn't believe it. And I know news came out, and I don't know if you guys listened to on College Basketball CBS. They talked about how Dusty, they won the national championship, and he was kind of just like, like it didn't really feel like it was that crazy. And I think fans kind of felt that way for Michigan too. I don't know what it was. Maybe they were just that good, or just all these transfers and all the money they put into it. It kind of just felt like it was like, okay, they won the championship. And then, of course, the portal opens at midnight, so they didn't even get to celebrate. Apparently he was on like a Zoom call, or had a Zoom call at like 3 a.m. that night to, get on with the transfer. So I think he just didn't like the lifestyle of a college coach, which some coaches don't. Billy Donovan has said the same thing. He would rather be an NBA coach. And NBA is the greatest league and the best players in the world. So if he got a shot at the NBA, I don't blame him for doing that. But I was shocked and definitely surprised that he moved on from Michigan. His job security was through the roof with just 2 years at Michigan. Next year they would have been amazing too. I would have ranked them above Illinois, I think, in the preseason, just based on Dusty and guys coming back. And I know they lost their 3 big guys going to the league, but I think now I would put them below Illinois. Interim coach coming in, they still got a good team, but I like Illinois' team better without Dusty there. I think they're definitely going to take a step back. I would put them at 3rd, probably in the Big Ten coming up this season. And I'm sure they'll find their next coach after this season, but it's tough timing for them. They can't do a whole search. They can't, poach anyone really at this point in the season. So it's tough for Michigan. Of course, they just won the national championship, so Michigan fans probably won't tell you that they care as much as we would without a national championship. But, yeah, we'll see how he does with the Mavs.
Yeah, Alex, what do you think this does for – because I think a lot of people universally were saying Michigan, Illinois next year. What do you think this does for Michigan's season, and what are you seeing, or what do you think about players returning, leaving, all that sort of stuff?
In terms of players returning, I expect the entire team to stay put. At this point, there's not many college basketball roster spots available. And then on top of that, even if, let's say Arizona is like, hey, I need someone to replace Koa Pete in my front court, there's not much money to shell out really, because, everyone's roster is pretty much set. They've hit their cap space. They've used all possible resources that they can. Elliot Cadeau is still really, really good. He's going to be one of the best point guards in all of America. Trey McKinney is expected to break out. They got a 5-star guard in Brandon McCoy Jr. LJ Cason's going to be out, but they got a lot of talented pieces. Quinn Costello is a really talented front court piece, 5-star guy. JP Estrella, Mustafa Town was arguably the best center in the transfer portal. So they got a really, really talented team. Is it last year's team? Absolutely not. But at the same time, they've got a really nice blend of, the young guys in Brandon McCoy Jr., the vets, if you will, and Elliot Cadeau. And old guards tend to win. I know we're led by a freshman in our Final Four run, but old guards, old point guards, typically tend to do pretty well. And on top of that, they got some really intriguing, vets that are coming in terms of the transfer portal in Estrella, in Cham. So I still think Michigan's going to be really good. They lose that edge coaching wise, like Robby was saying, because Dusty May honestly won them some games, especially if you think about some of the close games that they had versus Iowa. Really, really brilliant calls by Dusty May that helped them win. So they lose that little coaching edge, but this is still a really talented team that's going to stay put, and we'll see how Mike Boynton does. He's coached Cade Cunningham before, but other than that, he's been kind of okay just as a head coach. So we'll see what happens. And, I'm hoping that they don't get Josh Schertz from St. Louis in a year or so, because that would be another pain in the butt and another guy that I'm not looking forward to seeing in the Big Ten.
Yeah, and fun fact, I'm blanking on his name. The assistant that's going to be the interim head coach at Michigan was an
Boynton.
assistant. Yeah, Boynton was an assistant for Brad at Oklahoma State. Or no, Stephen F. Or both.
It was both. Yep.
Both. Yeah. Sorry. Maybe you already said that. I apologize. That leads me to my next question. So, Robby, I'll let you start with this one too. Illinois clearly is great at talent evaluation, because not only did Keaton Wagler go at 5th overall, but the guy that they evaluated and committed a lot of resources to, Merez Johnson, a year after leaving Illinois, goes 9th overall to join Dusty May with the Mavericks. So Dusty May gets Merez another year at least in Dallas. Yaxel goes 11th to the Warriors. And then Adai Mara goes to the Thunder, I believe, from the Clippers, is what I'm reading. So, Robby, what are your thoughts on those few picks? And Merez, just 1 year after leaving Illinois in a limited role, gets a bigger role at Michigan, is now a top 10 pick.
Yeah, there's always one guy in the top 10 that is kind of a little surprise. Like last year, Demon went in the top 10, and that was a little bit of a surprise to the Nets. I didn't think it was going to be Merez. I knew Merez would go in the lottery. I thought probably top 12. I thought maybe the Warriors or the Thunder, like his teammates, went. It was a little surprising that Merez went before Yaxel and Mara, but I think age had to do with that. And in terms of Yaxel's the best player out of Michigan. But, yeah, Merez is going to be a dog. I think I wouldn't say he had a limited role. I think he had a similar role on Michigan. They just trusted him a little bit more offensively and another year of development. I think he would have been just as good at Illinois. I still believe that. I think if he stuck around, he would have been amazing and been a really similar player. And it's one of those trades, if you will. I know it's not an actual trade in college, but where we got Merkovich and they got Merez. We made the Final Four. They won the national championship. I think it was one of those deals that really worked really well for both teams. Of course, if we had Merez, you could maybe argue that we win the national championship just with his high motor and maybe being a sophomore or whatever. But who knows? Who cares? It's crazy that he's going number 9 in the draft. I think he'll be a good player in the NBA. I view him as like an off the bench, high motor type of guy. I kind of compare him to a Montrezl Harrell, who was just like absolute dog rebounder. I know Montrez is a little bit smaller than Merez, but I see him in that type of role. He'll kind of develop offensively too. He'll develop a shot. He did really well on the 3-point, like star drill, whatever they call it on the combine, where he shot 68% from 3. So he's got potential there. And I thought it would have been funny if the Bulls took him, so Illinois fans would have to cheer for him again. But yeah, Dusty wanted him pretty bad, I think. So he went number 9.
Yeah, Alex, what do you think about all these Michigan guys getting drafted so high, and then maybe the impact on it? It'll be interesting. It's slowly, in a weird way. Now, I know fans might hear this, especially outside the fan base, and be like, "That's nuts." But I think Michigan and Illinois have been 2 of the 4 or 5 teams consistently in the Big Ten title race the last 4 or 5 years. Now they have a ton of guys drafted combined. What do you think? What do you think about the 3 Michigan guys going, and then sort of Illinois and Michigan kind of, I think, like rising to the top of the Big Ten in headlines and talent and that sort of thing?
Yeah, in terms of the 3 Michigan guys, I think all of them fell into really, really good situations. Obviously, Yaxel Underberg is probably the most ready to jump on the court and contribute, and the Warriors are trying to maximize whatever years left they have with Steph Curry and Draymond Green. So Yaxel is probably the most NBA ready, and I think out of the three at least. So I think that's a really good situation for him. What happens in the post Steph Curry era will be interesting to see and see what his role develops into. Adai Mara goes to a championship contending team that, that was their biggest hole, right? Victor Wembanyama killed them. They needed some bodies to really throw at Wemby. They had Hartenstein. Chet Holmgren obviously needs some help, and Adai Mara is a really, really intriguing piece and fits a lot of what they do, right? Skill from the perimeter, is able to pass, can protect the rim at a really, really high level. And then Merez, I really like Merez's prospects in the NBA. I think he's going to be really good. I think he's got a really good touch. He's going to develop that jump shot. Like Robby said, he plays incredibly hard. His motor is second to none. And I really am going to compare him to what Caleb Wilson's doing. I wouldn't be surprised if Merez does a little bit better than Caleb Wilson. Obviously, Wilson is more of an athlete and more twitchy and has a little bit more length and versatility to his game. But Merez does a lot of similar things, right? Freak athleticism, really good motor, really good rebounder, and does a lot of those right things. So I really like the Merez pick for Dallas. I think it's going to be fun to watch him and Cooper Flag play with each other. Derek Lively, Daniel Gafford. It's all going to be a really fun front court to watch. And Mike Schmitz, who used to do ESPN draft coverage, is now heading up their basketball operations. And I really trust his eyes too. He was really high on Jalen Williams, who turned out to be a really good pick. He was one of the first people to talk about Victor Wembanyama over in France. So I really trust Dallas Mavericks and Mike Schmitz and their scouting department. In terms of, Michigan and Illinois, I'm really happy because when I was a student, and Robby can probably attest to this too, John Beilein was kicking our butts every single year. And Michigan was making, national championship games, making runs. And then the nail in the coffin was obviously that they beat us after, nearly dying in a plane crash with practice jerseys on. So it's good to be on their level again. But like you said, they have the best kind of blend of really winning and getting to the top of the Big Ten. Obviously, the Juwan years were kind of marred. They weren't very good, that year when Illinois went to the Elite Eight and they were in the NIT the year before. But, other than that, they've done a really good job of getting guys to the NBA. Last year, Vlad Golden, Danny Wolf. This year, they had Adai Mara, Merez, Yaxel. Next year, they're going to have some guys in there as well, all from Dusty's kind of commit from work and stuff like that. Purdue has had some pretty good guys in the NBA as well, obviously with Zach Edey and all that. But Michigan and Illinois, you're right, are kind of setting the standard as consistent winners, making runs in the Big Ten tournament and the Big Ten title race, and then, making an impact in March too, because Purdue has been getting there, but in terms of getting guys like into the upper echelon of the NBA lottery and all that, Illinois and Michigan certainly have the Boilermakers beat in that regard.
So Keaton goes 5, Merez goes 9, Yaxel 11, Mara 12, Steinbach 14, Sturtz 16. Let's see here. We had a little stretch of no Big Ten. And then Thornton goes the first pick of the second round. Then we've had Braden Smith go. Then we've had Bilodeau, UCLA, if you're counting them in the Big Ten, which I guess you kind of have to now. And let's see, is it Martinelli? So of the Big Ten guys, Robby, what stands out to you? What are you thinking? Who's catching your eye about landing spot from the Big Ten?
Yeah, I mean, we just talked about it. I actually love Mara. People maybe sleep on him a little bit. Obviously, he went 11 or 12, whatever it was. So GMs weren't sleeping on him, but I absolutely love Mara. I think he's a huge body, similar to like a Zach Edey, where people thought he would fall in the draft, and he definitely did, and he was pretty good in his rookie year. I guess in the second round, it's hard to say. The Bulls drafted Braden Smith, and I was a little salty about that one, but they didn't end up trading it, which for Cam Jones and some other stuff too. But yeah, I mean, I've always liked Tyler Bilodeau. I think he's a really good stretch big, can handle the ball. He's always killed us too at Illinois. I remember, I think his not last year but the year before. He was having a great game at State Farm Center, and I think he just fits like the new NBA. He stretch 4, stretch 5, big body, can shoot, can pass, can do it all. He's honestly like he's a Brad Underwood big guy. I think if Brad could get him, he would love him on Illinois. And I think he got drafted by the Nets, but I don't know where he's going to. I'm trying to look, but I think he'll be a solid NBA player. We'll see how much tick he gets, but those type of guys that are big and can shoot and can pass and just high basketball IQ seem to stick around. So I'll probably say he's my favorite pick so far.
Yeah, Bilodeau, if he would have just played against Illinois, he might have been like a top 5 pick this year, because he definitely has this 6'9", 235, and at least against Illinois, he could knock down shots. So, Alex, what about you? Do you have any other ones that stand out, or any player you're like, I really like that, or I really don't like that Big Ten landing spot?
Yeah, you're right about Tyler Bilodeau there. I mean, maybe if he didn't play for Mick Cronin, he would have went, a little bit higher, because Mick Cronin was catching some strays last night with having a Daimara on his roster for 2 years and not really using him all that well. I really like Nick Martinelli. I think he was really productive at Northwestern. He was a guy that got better every year. I think he could do a lot of different things on the floor. You see, Brooks Barnheiser is on the Oklahoma City Thunder. Peyton Sanford's on there as well. So there's a lot of guys that are kind of that similar profile, right? Guys that can shoot, can rebound at a really high level, scrappy, may not be the best athlete, but they can, they're 4-year guys that know how to be in the right spots. So I really think those kind of guys can really fit at the end of rosters. You see Luka Garza, he's still on the Boston Celtics, slowly making his way. So those kind of guys seem to stick, like late second round. I hate to say this, but Caucasian shooters tend to do pretty well in the NBA from the Big Ten. So I'm really interested to see what Nick Martinelli does. I was hoping the Clippers would take Kylan Boswell, because I had a feeling they would take some kind of Big Ten kind of guard / defender. And I was hoping it'd be Kylan Boswell, because seeing Keaton and Kylan be teammates again would have been pretty cool. But Nick Martinelli will have to do. And I was a huge fan of watching him. And Bennett Sturts. I think Bennett Sturts is a little bit underrated. Obviously, the size and similar to what they're saying about Keaton in terms of the physical limitations, but he's a guy that just knows how to play the point guard position really, really well. And I think he's going to a great situation with the Oklahoma City Thunder, who needs some off-ball creation. You saw what that happened to them in the playoffs this year. Obviously, they had some injuries, but they needed some secondary ball creation, and Bennett Sturts can provide that at a really, really high level. So Nick Martinelli, Bennett Sturts, those are two of my favorites.
I absolutely love Sturts, the Thunder. I think he's going to be amazing. He's a sneaky athlete, 37.5, 40 inch, or almost 40 inch verge at 37.5, and good defender, makes good decisions. We'll see how he plays without the ball in his hands all the time, but I absolutely love that for the Thunder.
Yeah, man, Big Ten was loaded this year. Just thinking about like all the games, Keaton played well, Andre played well, Kylan played well, and then thinking about some of the opposing players that played well. I mean, Martinelli, Bilodeau, Steinbach. I think Steinbach played pretty well against Illinois, even though they didn't beat us, obviously. But yeah, Martinelli, that'll be interesting. Cool. I think that covers most of the draft for Keaton, Big Ten. Unfortunately, still no Kylan yet, but I'm sure pretty soon we'll hear where he is going to sign. But some other big news. Robby, I'll let you take this one since this one hits close to home. I think for all Illinois fans, but I know a little more personal for you. Io got paid or intends to sign a pretty big deal, 5 years, $112 million, to stay with the Timberwolves. People thought maybe he might explore, try to get a bigger bag, but I mean, over $20 million a year for Io, which a lot of people ended up going second round, and then a lot of people, didn't think he would ever get a contract like this. So. Yeah, what do you think of the Io deal? Should he have tried to get more money? Like, what do you think the fit is long term with the Timberwolves? What do you think there?
Yeah, well, if you know Io, he's a loyal dude, and he committed to Illinois when Illinois was terrible. And I saw a picture on Twitter the other day when we were like 0-8 in the Big Ten. I think that was yesterday, or when he got paid. We were 0-8 in the Big Ten. He went on the court and was taking shots and just visualizing what his life would be at the State Farm Center. So he's a loyal guy. He enjoyed himself in Minnesota, played really well in the playoffs. And similar to the NIL, it's not always the best decision to shop around and go to whoever's paying the most. I think Minnesota's a good fit for him. he can play big minutes and be on a really good contending Minnesota Timberwolves team. When he's playing on the Bulls, who are terrible every single year, I'm sure it was great for him being home, but he wanted to play on a contender at this point in his career. He wants to be, on a team that's really good. And I think it's great to see him get paid $112 million. He's set for life, and he's just going to continue to get better. Similar to hopefully what Keaton does, he continues to prove people wrong. He's a second round pick, and if you do a redraft in no world, he would be a second round pick, and he was close to National Player of the Year, so that was bogus anyway. He's playing exactly how I thought he would. He's amazing in Illinois, and now he's being an amazing NBA player as well. So we got a road trip to Minnesota, go see him play at the Timberwolves arena, and hopefully he continues to thrive in Minnesota.
Yeah, Alex, what are your thoughts on the IO deal and just sort of his progression from continuing to prove people wrong, had the big, playoff performances and stuff this year, but what are your thoughts on IO's transition from Illinois to maybe being a role player for the Bulls to now getting paid by the Timberwolves?
I think the biggest thing that inspires me about Io DeSumo is that each season he gets better. Literally every single season, he's gotten better in the NBA. He's worked on holes in his game. He attacks basically every single weakness that he has. When he came in, it's like, hey, he can't shoot. He's shooting above 40% from three at this moment. People are saying, hey, he can't really finish at the rim. He got a lot stronger. I mean, you talk about NBA development, just comparing him to, now to when he came into the NBA even, it's completely night and day. A lot of people were saying, hey, he can't go left. He's become a pretty dang good finisher going left, and he can finish with both hands. He gets to the rim with ease now, something that he really wasn't doing early on in his Bulls career just because of his, kind of short stature and things of that nature. So each year, Io DeSumo gets better. In the playoffs, he averaged close to, 15, 16 points, but he was shooting 50% from the field, over 40% from three, and then 90% from the free throw line, which is pretty dang good. That's that 50 40 90 club is really, really hard to come by. And he was close to doing that for the regular season as well. So he really developed a good chemistry with Anthony Edwards. I think it's just because of how competitive they are, how hard they play. And with Dante DiVincenzo missing the year with an Achilles injury, there's a really, really big opportunity for Io DeSumo, to come into the starting lineup, play alongside Anthony Edwards, and really work on his game to be, that second in command, especially with Julius Randle leaving. There's a lot of scoring that needs to be had. So I'm hoping that Io and Terrence Shannon Jr. get to see the floor a lot more. They're both teammates, which I think is really cool to see. But the good thing about Io is that he just works on things each offseason and attacks all of his weaknesses and makes them into, honestly, strengths. So I think that's the biggest thing that I've taken away from Io's development since he came into the NBA.
Yeah, it's been such an awesome story to follow. And as sometimes it can be tough being a major college fan, right? And you have an amazing player who you really admire, and then you just understand, like Luke Altmaier is my example, right? Awesome dude. I don't know if he's ever gonna take a team to the playoffs, right? Unfortunately, and I hope that that's doubt, and I hope that he is able to do something like that. But and I feel like there was a little bit of fear about that for Io, that maybe he just okay, he's going to the Bulls, maybe he'll just kind of fade away into the G League or something. But to see him really thrive has been so amazing. And Kasparas Giakoušionis is now headed to, I don't think it's like technically official because the NBA draft people weren't talking about it, or they wouldn't address it. The Bucks GM wouldn't address it, but KJ is headed to Milwaukee from Miami, a part of the Giannis Antetokounmpo deal. Robby, what do you think about this transition for KJ? Apparently, the Heat were really torn and they didn't want to get rid of KJ, but they finally caved and sent him to Milwaukee. But what are your thoughts on the new fit for KJ?
Yeah, well, I thought the Bucks got a pretty good haul for Giannis. I honestly don't think the Heat will be even that like a contender with Giannis, and the Bucks got Ware, KJ, Hero, other guys. But I think that's a good situation for KJ. I'm hoping he gets some more minutes, and we got some more Midwest ties for the Illinois guys, 2 guys in Minnesota. Now KJ kind of coming home. People here in Chicago can go up to Milwaukee and see him play a little bit more, but I think he just needs a chance to play big minutes. I think, Bucks are obviously in more of a rebuilding, trying to stack young talent type vibe in their franchise now after moving on with Giannis. And I think the Bucks did a really good trade, or a really good draft, with Berries and Ahmet, and on 10 and 13, I believe it was. So they got some good young talent. If KJ can, develop with those guys, kind of get better every single year, like we mentioned with Iowa, I think that's just the biggest thing for him. He's still young. Young guard that obviously struggled a little bit with decisions at Illinois, and I think his IQ will only get better, playing with other really good young guys and continue to play in the NBA. So a lot of Illinois news without getting paid, KJ getting traded, but I do like it for him overall.
Yeah. Sorry. Alex, what are your thoughts on KJ getting traded? Maybe some things you want to see from KJ or have him develop? I know the first year was really injury prone, but what are your thoughts from KJ and what you hope to see from him this year?
Yeah, it depends because I think he still needs to develop playing off the ball. I think at Illinois he was very ball dominant. He's a good shooter, catch and shoot situations. He can make plays off the bounce, but I think he really struggled not really knowing what his role was last year in Miami. Sometimes he had the ball in his hands, particularly when injuries were prevalent. And sometimes when he was playing, he would just come in to be kind of a 3-and-D kind of spot defender, handle the ball at certain situations. And I think he kind of struggled with that and getting a rhythm. KJ is all about rhythm. Just watching him at Illinois, once he gets into a rhythm, he's really, really good. You saw the big games at the beginning of the year, but once he gets thrown off of it and maybe gets a little frazzled, gets taken away from what he usually does, it's tough for him to settle in. And I think that's where he struggles with turnovers and things of that nature. He played a lot better. He was super efficient at the end of the season. But again, Miami wasn't really going anywhere. And once they played in that playing game, he didn't even play. So I'm really excited to see him just maybe get a role and just get his feet wet, so to speak. He should play in the NBA Summer League. I think that'll benefit him. He didn't play in that last year due to an injury. So I'm excited to see what KJ can do because it may not be the big market or kind of that flashy team, but this is an opportunity for him to make some noise. Will Riley did the same thing last year in Washington. It was a bad team, but he was averaging over 15 points a game in the second half after the All-Star break and playing, starters minutes. So if KJ can get that, then I think we'll all be watching, and hopefully him and Hero can make a heck of a backcourt, and Jaime Jaquez, former Big Ten guy.
Yeah, that's a good point with KJ. It really does feel like he's such a flow guy, and I hate to keep bringing this to football, but you notice that a lot in football too, where a quarterback, once he gets going, he gets really going. And I think Bears fans might hate this, but Jordan Love comes to mind for you NFL fans. He has some bad moments, but when Jordan Love gets going, he hits a couple big throws, then he starts picking up his game, and that's kind of how KJ fell to Illinois. Like he had games where he had like 6 points and he would kind of fumble around. And then he had games where hit a couple threes, got some things going, and he definitely was taking over. So, well, we had a lot to talk about, over 50 minutes. Is there anything else from the NBA draft, from Keaton's spot that you guys are dying to talk about?
I did see Ben Hummerkaus as part of Jay Billis's, best available. He was probably the last person on the list, but I thought that was a good little shout out to Ben Hummerkaus. I'll be keeping an eye before I go to bed to see where Kylan and Ben sign, and we'll obviously keep tabs on their summer team or summer league teams, and will be interesting to see who plays in the NBA Summer League. Obviously, I wonder if KJ and will play that, but some of the overseas guys, right, like Marcus Damask, will he give it a go? Quincy Guerrier has played in the past. Justin Harmon was doing really good in the NBA G League. Does he get an opportunity? Sometimes even guys like Raybonte Rice, Brandon Paul make an appearance. Malcolm Hill, I'm sure he's going to make an appearance. He always seems to do that. So seeing some recent Illinois alums in the NBA Summer League, and then seeing some, kind of blasts from the past, if you will, in guys like Rice, Brandon Paul, Malcolm Hill. I think Nana Agwu was on a team randomly a couple years ago. So that's really what I'm looking forward to. And I hope by the time we cover that, it's kickoff time for Illinois football on September 3rd.
Yeah, unfortunately, Kylan did not go, but like Alex said, we'll hopefully he'll sign with the team. And yeah, I'd like to see Ben Hummerkaus in Summer League, Kylan Boswell, of course, and some of those other guys too, Coleman Hawkins. That'll give us some entertainment through the summer. And yeah, after that, we're close to football season. But yeah, that combined, usually it's similar time as EYBL Peach Jam too, so we can see Quentin Kit play then. And I know that's a couple weeks away, but something to look forward to.
No, absolutely. And I just saw Trey Coffin-Wren from Purdue got drafted by the Timberwolves too. So very late. Well, Robby, plug your stuff. What do you got coming up? And then Alex, you do the same. I know you guys are doing a lot at Armchair. So let me know what you guys got coming up, what you're excited about.
Yeah, Armchair Illini newsletter every Monday morning. Subscribe. Just a nice little snippet of Illinois content on the hoop side. So definitely subscribe there. And yeah, I'm doing stuff with Roundtable Illinois now too as well. New site that I've been tweeted out and everything. So definitely become a subscriber there. We'd love to have you on that site. And I'm doing a lot of writing there as well as doing some stories at the Champaign room.
Yeah, again, thank you for having me on. I enjoyed doing our episode, Isaac. So hopefully you're on our show back again, Armchair Illini. But yeah, we just got basically what Robby has going on too. NBA draft stuff for now. We'll see what the EYBL shows. We're trying to work on some Clippers content, trying to get a better idea of what Keaton's role can be. That's still in the works. So again, just one day at a time. And but again, there's some things at least to keep us busy until kickoff. So armchairillini.com, and then Armchair Illini's YouTube page, and Armchair Illini on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, what have you. Anything that you like, we're happy to cover.
Yes, Alex, thanks so much for joining, and it was really fun joining you last week. Robby, thanks as always. Make sure to check out all their stuff and give both of them a follow, Armchair and Robby, and all the things. So thanks again, guys. Awesome. Again, pretty cool that we can go over 50 minutes in towards the end of June. So we'll definitely have to do this again soon. Get another draft idea maybe rolling soon. And yeah, thanks for joining. Make sure to like, subscribe, all the fun things. We'll get this uploaded to YouTube and ILL.
I know.
I know.